The Treehouse is a giant redwood growing alongside State Highway 101 in Mendocino County. It's been a famous roadside attraction here since 1929. You can walk into the hollow of this tree and find an arcade of old coin-operated machines, the oldest of which depicts the times during early logging in the northern counties. Proceed through the tree and you'll enter the Redwood gift shop. Treehouse souvenirs abound. There's trail guides and brochures to all the Redwood parks. Chainsaw carvings from local artists. While in the gift shop, you're almost certain to meet Angela Blackwell. My first recollection of this tree goes back to 1956. The Treehouse was a rest stop for my family during our travels up and down the old highway. Let me tell you, the old highway was slow going through the redwoods back then. It took over 10 hours to get to Santa Rosa from Crescent City, which was only about 300 miles. The drive-through tree was a rest stop I'll never forget, because my father succeeded in getting our car stuck in this tree and was burning the tires off trying to get out. When you're raised in trees like this, you tend to take them for granted. That's the way it is. It wasn't until I started climbing that it dawned on me just how big the redwoods get. After that, all those stops along the highway took on a new light, the Treehouse especially. This is the largest redwood tree on Highway 101. How the tree became a roadside attraction began at the turn of the century. A schoolteacher named Minnie Lilly claimed a section of land near the tree and settled there before the highway was even built. Minnie called the tree the Fraternal Monarch and wanted badly to buy the land it was on too. While the highway was being built, the road crew used the Fraternal Monarch as a bunkhouse. In 1927, Lilly bought the land from the Sage Land and Improvement Company and began development of Lilly Redwood Park. In the 30s, the tree was written up in Ripley's Believe It or Not as the tallest one-room house in the world. The name Treehouse came to be, and Lilly's Redwood Park took on the familiar appearance it has today. Miss Lilly died in 1947 and is laid to rest in a crypt near her beloved Fraternal Monarch. I measured the Treehouse in 1996 with my friend Wes Burns from Leggett. Every 50 feet we took circumference measurements and calculated the tree to be 250 feet tall and contain a volume of 218,000 board feet. Yep, she's a mighty big tree, all right. Today the Treehouse is owned and operated by Bruce and Angela Blackwell. In the spring of 2002, the Blackwells contacted me over a couple of concerns they had about the tree. For one, the top exhibits signs of decline, and that worried them. For another, the tree recently dropped limbs over the gift shop entrance, nearly killing some visitors. They wanted to know if anything could be done for the tree's sake, while at the same time reduce the liability from limbs falling out. The Blackwells' request presented a unique opportunity. I proposed doing a video survey of the tree, and after it was done, we could review it and decide what course of action to take. They agreed and gave me the go-ahead. This is a mighty big tree, and in order to do a survey right, I'm going to need some help and expert opinions myself. One friend I called on to help me with this survey was Andy Taylor of Elk, California, seen here during a climb in a giant spruce. Should work need to be done in the Treehouse, Andy's expertise with rig and design will be considered. I also called on Greg Leo, and watching him climb through this tree isn't any wonder. Greg is a certified arborist and works for the city of Chico. He's always actively organizing tree work seminars, safety training, and competition events. And here's Mike Randlin of Fort Bragg, California. He's been helping me with big tree projects for 17 years, and the Treehouse is no exception. When I told Mike I needed help with it, I didn't have to ask him twice. So, with Mike, Greg and Andy's help, the Treehouse survey is going to become a qualified success. We gathered at the tree and set ropes on 3 sides. Andy will be taking the pitch up the north side and setting ropes for me as he goes. On the east or highway side of the tree, I helped Greg get started on the line. Mike Randall took the south pitch, and it's going to be nice and sunny and warm for him. The limbs on the first 100 feet of this tree can be referred to as secondary or sucker limbs. These are the limbs that have grown in place of the larger primary limbs that broke off the tree long ago. Secondary limbs are characterized by their habit to grow in clusters around the collar of the broken primaries. They arise from adventitious buds. Of all the conifers in the Northwest, it's a feature unique only to the coast redwood. Along the way, I'll be showing you some features and conditions that exist in this tree. Keep in mind, some of the features and conditions you'll be seeing have been in the making for over 1,000 years. All through the lower part of the tree are the large remnant stubs of the old primaries. You can bet this tree had a much different form and appearance when these big limbs were still intact. Some of the stubs are in an advanced state of decay and can easily fall apart if you bumped into them or just snagged your rope on one. Some broken primaries have regenerated new growth, though by the condition of the parent structure, most of the new growth will never mature into anything substantial before it breaks off the stem. The attachments are very weak. The primary limbs contrast sharply from the secondaries. They're much larger and stately and exhibit a well-developed structure branching from the main stem. Being the largest limbs, they catch the most snow and wind load. When these big primary limbs break, they can shear every limb off the side of the tree below them. Several large primaries have extensive hollows, which have filled with duff and come to support a varied community of native plant life. Major deadwood abounds all through the tree, but by far the largest concentration occurs in the top. Nearly half of the primary limbs there exhibit more dead structure than living. The top side of the limbs are bone dry and dead, but the underside is still alive and supporting all the tufts of foliage you see. The good news is there's prodigious amounts of secondary limbs developing in the top to carry on the role of the declining primaries. Here's the view from the top of the tree. You're looking at the South Fork of the Eel River. And there's State Highway 101, 250 feet below us. On the way down, we talked about what should be done in the tree and agreed. A limb tip reduction would reduce snow and wind load and minimize limb breakage throughout. As the deadwood goes, the majority of it should come out. How exactly to go about it and where to start could be compared to figuring out all the pieces of a very large puzzle. Lowering the work from the top through everything below could result in massive hang-ups. Andy pointed out speed lines could be set up to fly the dead limbs out of the top, and figured over 1,000 feet of rope would be needed to make it work. We all agreed the cost to do the job could be prohibitive for the Blackwells. Greg pointed out that he knew people who would come to work in the tree just for the opportunity. That was a good point. With volunteer effort and sponsorship, the Treehouse project could be managed. Here was an opportunity to invite arborists from across the nation who always wanted to climb a giant redwood. But not only climb one, here was a chance to all get together and work in one of the largest. Upon completion of our survey and reviewing it, the Blackwells gave the nod of approval to proceed. I got on the internet to pass the word on to friends. By fall, at the TCI Expo in Milwaukee, the buzz about the Treehouse project was going around, and the feeling was positive. Also at TCI, the project gained the interest of 2 corporate sponsors, one from Stihl Incorporated. Anita Gamble, Public Relations Specialist for Stihl, was on the project. The other was from New England Rope, and Howard Wright, New England's top engineer and rope specialist, was on the project too. Private sponsors came in to cover insurance, root zone feeding, and video post-production. Offers to help came from more than 20 volunteers, and they were coming from all across the U.S. From concept to having the project on the starting line took a full year, and the start date was set for March 31st, 2003. Greg and I met at the tree on the 29th. That gave us a couple of days to get everything ready, like taking the sign down, moving the carvings, and installing the ropes. A big order for just 2 people, but with others due to show up, we knew more help was on the way. Here's Jesse Bauckham from Hillmark, California. He's going to be one of the climbers in the tree. Jesse is also one of the private sponsors and is carrying the insurance for the project. New England shipped out 3,100 feet of rope, and this tree is going to need every bit of it. By noon, Lance Wallace and John Paul Sanborn rolled in from Wisconsin, followed by Charlie Podorf from Manhattan, Kansas. Charlie will be photographing the project and is a private sponsor too, chipping in on the video post-production costs. By Sunday afternoon, all the rope was in place. Banners for the sponsors were set in the tree, and most of the people that said they were coming were there. In all, 27 people showed up at the Treehouse, with guests Mark Chisholm and Robert Phillips. Come Monday morning, Mark was anxious to get started and burned to the top of the Treehouse without stopping, 250 feet. Unfortunately, work was planned to begin at the bottom. Mark come all the way out from New Jersey and brought Brian Noyes from Rhode Island to work with him in the tree. Mark and Brian will be taking the east-southeast side. Robert Phillips and Scott Chappell will be working the ground for them. Greg Leo and Jesse Bauckham will be working together on the north side of the tree. And running ropes for them will be Dan Gibson from Chico and James Piercy from Tahoe City. Taking the west side over the gift shop will be Michael Oxman from Seattle and Lance Wallace from Milwaukee. Grounding for them will be shared between all the ground support.
Killing me, Mark.
The Treehouse project is underway. Completion is scheduled for the afternoon of April 2nd. That gives us 3 days to wrap this tree up. These guys will be moving fast through the lower structure. The work here consists mostly of simple tip reduction on the longer branches, which for the most part they can manage quite easily with their hand saws. The Blackwells couldn't be present for the start of the job. Since it's the off-season for the gift shop, they spend this time of the year with family out of state. However, Angela is expected to arrive tomorrow afternoon sometime. Boy, is she going to get a surprise. The Stihl Company supplied the project with 3 200T climber saws, which, by the way, are the best climbing saws available anywhere. Before work got underway, we grouped together and talked about the parameters of the job. I laid out the plan that the heavier limbs will be tipped back 25 to 30%. I didn't have to explain to these guys how they were going to manage that. You know, it means setting your lines